Hey everybody, welcome. So happy you're here. It's a big day.
I suddenly feel bashful. There's a lot of people in here.
That's great.
Oh, wow. I'm seeing some good sweaters. I'm already feeling deficient in my wardrobe.
Yeah, that's the eternal challenge right there. So welcome everybody. We are thrilled to be here with Arne and Carlos, dialing in from the snowy north of Norway. So glad you're here. We're going to let everybody roll in while we're welcoming everybody. If you'd like to put in the chat where you're dialing in from, we'd love to know that. And if you care to share what you're working on, that's really wonderful too. So the chat button's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So just put it right in there and we'll enjoy that. So
we're on the eve of a great knit along, which starts tomorrow. So if you're looking for something to knit and you haven't jumped on the knit along yet, it's a really great one. And I think we can say that with Arne and Carlos's help, we will have more support for the participants in this knit along than we've ever had in the history of MDK. So if you want to feel supported in your journey to make a Norwegian hat, we are here for you.
That's good.
Oh, somebody from Norway's tuning in from Trondheim. Yeah, nice. One Norwegian plus Arne and me.
Hi, Ingrid.
And lots of Americans and Canadians I could see. That's nice.
I'm all over. It's great.
All over the country, all over the continent, actually.
Wow. Look at the chat. The chat is on fire. Everybody.
Great.
Staten Island, represent Staten Island.
Oh yeah.
I hope when I go through the chat, I'll see all 5 boroughs of New York City.
Just a little parlor game you play.
It goes so quick, it's hard to read.
Yeah, I know.
When it settles down, Allison on our team will be putting in some links that'll be useful to you if you're knitting from this field guide and if you're in the knit along. So at the end, if you want to save the chat, you can save the chat. You can also just remember that we have a chat board on MDK called the MDK Lounge, and it's free and everybody can, there's going to be a very hop-in topic there for the Setesdal Hat knit along. And we always put at the top of that topic all the helpful links, and that's a work in progress. We just keep adding to it. So Arne and Carlos will be doing video content for the knit along, and the tips and tricks that they share will be stuff that will help you in certainly all the projects in this field guide, not just the hat. And also, any kind of strand of color work knitting, this is going to be a little mini masterclass in color work knitting. I hope we have some people who are new to it and who needed the powerful persuasion of Arne and Carlos to jump in, because you're going to be amazed, at how uncomplicated it can be to make something that looks so complicated, really.
Oh yeah. So why don't we jump right in, shall we? There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I was thinking we would begin, Arne and Carlos, to take a quick spin through your field guide, and just show people the variety of projects. I think it's fast. It has been, by the way, completely joyful to work with you all on this project, to get to hear how you arrive at what you create, what your inspirations are, and just letting us know how these projects came to be is a wonderful thing. So if that's all right with you guys, we'll do a screen share for the field guide, and then once we're done with that, I thought we would go into more of the details about the hat project and the knit along, and let people ask questions if they have them, or tips and tricks, all that sort of thing. So let's get started with the field guide itself. One sec. Weird. It's not letting me share my screen incredibly. Just take
Hold up the guide.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're gonna have to, no, it's a permissions thing that's.
Everybody just keep knitting. That's what knitting is for, waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we're gonna have to do this old school, you guys. Sorry, there's a permissions problem I'm having with the screen share. Why don't we just start right ahead with the sweater, because it's the fanciest of fancy, and it's the project that when Kay and I first saw it, took our breath away, and it's just incredible. So here it is.
Oh,
What's the name of this project? It's the Valdres pullover. And what does Valdres mean?
That's the area where we live.
Yeah, we live in a mountainous area in the south of Norway called Valdres. So Valdres is a region, just like Setesdal is another region here.
What's it like in Valdres?
Well, it's a nice traditional, just like Setesdal. Valdres is very,
in the winter.
Yeah, it's a very traditional area. They are actually very well known here for folk music. Especially, there is a special instrument that they have been playing continuously for like 700 years or something, and they still do here.
It's called the Langelei.
Yeah.
It's like a fiddle lying on the floor.
And it's a string
on the
instrument.
table, strings,
It's like
and then
a harp.
like a harp.
Yeah, they're also very well known in Norway for certain types of food. If the food has a from Valdres kind of brand, it's very high quality. There's especially a trout that is salted, that is eaten raw, which is really nice, that comes from here. And it's a mountainous area, so we have all the beautiful peaks and mountains here. The Jotunheimen National Park is here. So it's really an area of outstanding beauty here in Norway. So it's a very inspiring place to live, actually, because it's very beautiful.
So when I hold up a sweater like this and kind of go, wow, isn't this a great sweater? It's like, there's so much in here. You know, when you're talking about these regions of Norway and these places, we've talked earlier about where these motifs come from and how it's not just a random abstract kind of little pattern that you all doodle up, right? I mean, there's a lot of history in these motifs. I'm curious if you could tell us more about where these motifs come from and how how did you end up with this as your design?
You can see the inspiration on this one.
And what is that?
This is the cuff of the sweater for the folk costume from Setesdal. That's the area where my grandmother came from. So this is what I wear with my folk costume that I got.
Wow.
But
So it's knitted and embroidered?
Yeah. It's traditionally, this sweater is knitted by in a hand knitting machine. And then the cuffs and the front of the collar or the chest are embroidered on felt, and then they're sewn together.
So, and this is called the wise virgin in English, and we took inspiration from this part. But you see there's a lot of different patterns on the garment, and you have to have silver or pewter buttons. And then around the neck is the same. So this is steeked, and then you sew on the wool, and then you make the embroidery.
Yeah.
This is hard to maneuver. Going that way or this way.
So
was that made specifically for you, Arne, or how did you come by that sweater?
They have different styles. So I chose this one, which is more for the folk costume. It's more like for weddings and it's more decorative. Carlos chose another one with more more simple embroidery, but
Yeah,
it's
less.
very beautiful. But it's just a black piece with a little bit of embroidery around and white around the waist or the hem.
But Arne's was chosen by Arne because he was going to have a fall costume, because he is partly from that area. So it was kind of, mine is less used with the folk costume. So, but yeah, the knitting is actually younger than the embroidery. The knitting dates back to like 1820. The embroidery dates back to the medieval ages, and all the symbols have very important meaning in history and in traditions. So yeah, it's quite interesting to take the embroidery and kind of interpret that into knitting when you are trying to create something that is sort of new but still anchored in the past tradition. So it's always about deconstructing and then building these patterns up again in new, exciting ways, so that people will want to knit them. And that way, you kind of work on preservation of the cultural heritage, and you actually bring it into the new century, and hopefully for the preserve it for the future as well.
And hardly no one of these sweaters are looking the same, because each knitter or each person who do the embroidery have their own style. So if you're very into this kind of embroidery and knitting, sometimes you can tell who made it by looking at the embroidery and the pattern.
Yeah, the rules are very strict when you embroider this. So it's passed from generation to generation, and there's a very strict kind of framework of rules. But within that very strict set of rules, it is expected that the embroiderer shows their good taste and also their skill and also their creativity. So they are allowed to variate, do variations of the theme. So different kinds of variations, and of course the different color compositions is also very important. The colors can be used exactly whichever color you like. So when you embroider these, you also show your good taste in picking colors. And Arne's sweater, he personally chose the colors, and he wanted to have the pink in because it kind of clashes a little bit with the red, and it actually looks pretty cool.
So I wanted the pink one and also the blue one. Which way? This one, and the pink one. So you see, it's more or less the same colors as we use in the Norwegian wool. Yeah. Because it's very Norwegian to put these colors together in a way. You have the red and the pink and the green and the blue. Yeah,
but usually
and the yellow.
But nowadays, in modern times, usually the palette stays in the red, green, and blue. It's kind of that palette. So it's nice to add other colors like the pink or the orange or the yellow, which is not as common now as it was 150 years ago.
So
it's just so interesting. So much of your professional background is in very, very modern kinds of knitwear design and working with very current styles and with current designers. But when you talk about what you just described to us, it's just so interesting to imagine mashing up very traditional, very specific things with your own vision of how these things ought to interplay with each other. So I think that's one of the things I love most about this field guide, is because when we came to this project with you, Kay and I were learning, as we went, about what you guys are up to, and seeing these projects come together, and to understand that, these motifs are embroidery motifs in a lot of cases. They're not even knitting motifs. It just adds a layer to the sort of beauty of what you guys are designing. I think these are the kind of projects that as a color work knitter, I am fascinated by what you have cooked up here.